She's under a lot of pressure. She's getting lots of death threats and just horrible things are happening with regards to that situation. But they're trying to belittle her. They don't want to address the message. They want to kill the messenger.
Right.
And so they say, well, she's gotten divorced 3 times, and so she's now married to her 4th husband. Well, that's true. She doesn't deny that. She's acknowledged she's made lots of mistakes in her life, but that was 4.5 years ago when everything changed. And it changed when her mother-in-law, as a dying wish, said, Kim, I wish you would just try church, go to church. And she did one time, and she heard the pastor preach about Galatians and forgiveness of sins and that you can have a new life. And she gave her life to the Lord, and she's been a different woman ever since. And it's from that relationship that she has that gives her the strong conviction that she has now, that she cannot violate her conscience, she cannot violate her Lord, and she can't put her name, and this is the big issue, she can't put her name on a license that gives a license to someone to do something that's contrary to her Christian values and belief, contrary to the Word of God. She doesn't have a problem giving a license if her name's not on it. She's simply asked as an accommodation, remove my name from the license. Take my official title off the license. I'll record it, but I can't have my license on there, because once that is done, my name is licensing something that's contrary to my core Christian values, and it's going to stay in the annals of Kentucky history until there is no more Kentucky.
Wow, exactly. It's quite amazing to me how, I mean, just to get biblical for a minute, God gives people more free will than progressives do. On this case, though, has she suspended issuing all marriage licenses, or is it just still same-sex marriage licenses?
She actually suspended issuing all marriage licenses, and interestingly, at the hearing for contempt, which is coming up very quickly, where the ACLU wants to hold her in contempt of court, the president of the Senate is now dispatching his attorneys to say, look, you shouldn't hold her in contempt of court because the laws of marriage are now shredded in Kentucky. There really are no laws after the Supreme Court decision on June 26, and the legislature has to convene to make sense out of what has now happened 2 months ago with the Supreme Court. So that's an interesting twist of events that's just now occurring.
Well, what do you say to people who argue that, well, she's an agent of the state? I mean, basically, by giving her name as, you know, to license these unions. What do you say to people who say, well, why shouldn't she just simply quit her job if she doesn't want to use her name on all of these licenses?
Well, there's several different responses. She's been employed there as a clerk for 27 years. Last year, she won a public election, November of 2014, and she became the elected clerk. She's got lots of support. The people there want her to do the job. She's doing a great job. By the end of the year, she'll actually save the taxpayers $1.5 million. And, you know, when the 27 years ago when she started this job and now as an elected official, the rules of the game changed 2 months ago when the Supreme Court, 5 people decided to invent a right to same-sex marriage in the Constitution. That wasn't what she signed up for. It's not what anyone signed up for. So they changed the job description, the job duties. And so as a result of that, it collides with her religious conscience. But even if they hadn't changed the job duties, there's plenty of case precedent from the Supreme Court and elsewhere that just because you're a public employee, you don't shed your constitutional rights. You certainly don't lose your rights to due process or freedom of speech or free exercise of religion. And the real question here is not whether does she have those rights. She does. Not whether they're sincere. They are. Or they're colliding with the government policy. They are. But are there alternatives that are reasonable for accommodation? And yes, there's plenty of those options. In fact, Dana, the governor of Kentucky just several months ago accommodated his single attorney general, the sole law enforcement officer, when he went to a press conference in tears and basically said, I can't defend the laws of the state of Kentucky regarding marriage because my conscience convicts me I can't do it. And he says, okay, we'll accommodate you. And they hired an outside private counsel for several $100,000 to accommodate the attorney general. Well, there's 120 clerks in Kentucky. There's 130 plus places that you can get a marriage license. You can drive 30 minutes in each direction. The plaintiffs could have had a license long ago, but they want her to give a license with her name on it. It's not about getting a license in Kentucky. It's about violating somebody's religious convictions and conscience. That's what's at issue.
Absolutely. I have to point out, because I think it's quite amusing that it hasn't been raised in mainstream media. She's a Democrat. Kim Davis is a Democrat.
Yeah, she's a Democrat. That's right. She is a Democrat. She's been raised in Kentucky in Rowan County. She's been a lifelong Democrat. Yeah, they don't want to add that fact